Heathen Brewer, about to give you another video. It's been a while, too long really. Just shit in the way, getting in the way, to be honest with you. Other stuff to do, house to finish, family stuff comes in the way, so just to take a back seat. But I'm back. Keggorator, that's what we're doing today. Hopefully that's what we're doing today. I've got all my stuff, all my bits and bobs, got 4 kegs, although I'll only probably be fitting 3 because I'm going to have to use some of the fittings for something else, so I can only fit 3, but I've only got 2 beers ready to go in anyway, so yeah, so we're going to set this Keggorator up. Just going to have 4 taps, 2 kegs by today, but set up for 3 kegs, and with view at the end of the week, next week, I'll have it set up for 4. I'm probably waffling on a little bit too much, to be honest with you. I think we should just sort of crack on with it, get on with it. Kegs supplied by Johnny at Brew Keg Tap, fantastic bloke, very knowledgeable, very happy to talk to you, sets you up with a system that suits what you need. Been sort of gauging the sort of the scope of this job from various videos. I'll probably find that Clive at Cutter's Choice Homebrew is being my go-to person, go-to video. I'll probably be plagiarising his system, to be honest. But what I'll do is I'll quickly run through what I've got, what I intend to do in this video, and what I intend to do in the future. So I've got a 4 keg system. It was a double keg, it's a deluxe keg set, I think it was, he sells down at Brew Keg Tap. So you get all your pipe work, you get your taps, stainless steel into taps with flow control on them. Reconditioned kegs, A-grade reconditioned kegs, seals, cleaned, polished, whatever. What else came? 2 regulators. Now, because it's 2 kits, I didn't need 2 CO2 regulators, so I bought 1 CO2 and I bought 1 as a mixed regulator. So the mixed regulator is going on today because I have got a canister, a 10 kilo canister I think it is, or cylinder, of 60-40, so that's 60% carbon dioxide, 40% nitrogen. It's meant to be quite good for things like lagers, things that require a head but don't require that thickness, that low. It's got a bit more fizz. So hopefully that might be all I need, but if it isn't, it's fine. I've got a CO2 regulator just sitting there waiting to be done. So I've got it all here. I've had to nick some of the fittings for this system so I can adapt my system, because I've bought an auxiliary regulator, so it'll be coming straight out the gas regulator straight into this auxiliary regulator, where I can regulate or moderate the amount of pressure going into the kegs, or going into the 4 branch manifold, then it goes down into the kegs. And also on this auxiliary regulator, I've got a means of carbonating outside the fridge. So if I brew a beer, I don't want to put it in the fridge, it's cold enough in the shed, I can just clip it on, carbonate it externally outside of the fridge. That'll be part of the system, so I'll show you that today as well. But working on the future, what I want to do in the very near future, probably in the next couple of weeks, get another auxiliary regulator and daisy chain them. What that does is it allows me to bypass the 4 branch manifold I've got in the fridge, which means I can have a stout, have a porter, have a basically a cask carbonated style bitter, something that's not heavily carbonated like a lager or maybe an IPA, something that's a bit lower. And the way you do that is you just join them in on the auxiliary post coming out of the first regulator. You go straight into your second regulator, and then you just basically do the same as you've done with the first by having a separate feed going into a keg within the fridge. which would have your stout or your porter or your mild or your bitter or whatever you want to do. So that's what I intend to do in the future, but today it's just going to be a setup. 4 kegs, no, 3 kegs, 3 keg setup. 2 kegs are going in today with 4 taps. So there's going to be 4 taps, 3 kegs set up, 2 kegs going in today. Hopefully, that's what I'm planning on doing. I've got a vacant gesture that's been sat there cold crashing for 2 days, and I've got a shitty beer that I want to try and improve. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it doesn't seem to be clearing. It's a little bit muddy, so I want to stick it in a keg, fine it with some gelatin, and leave it for a few weeks. Come back to it and see if it's pulling clear. So hold tight, and we'll see what we can do. First things first, we've got to secure this cylinder. These cylinders effectively are a hazard. They've got about 180 bar in there, which is stupid PSI. It's about, what would that be? About 1000 PSI. If you knock that over and you knock that head off of that cylinder, it's going to shoot through whatever it is it's in the way of. It could be yourself, could be the shed, and it would travel down the garden at some rate of knots. So in order to do it, I've bought some chain, some clasps, and I'll get it so it's actually fixed to the wall. It's just a precaution. I've got my little boy comes in here, my lad comes in here, gets his scooter out and plays around. So I don't want him to, knock it over and potentially hurt himself or potentially hurt me or anything else. So safety first. Let's get that sorted out. And it's a fairly simple setup, but I'll show you what I'm doing. Right, good people. I've done the securing of the cylinder, so that's all safe and sound. We're going to connect up the regulator to it. I'm going to use a little bit of, well, I don't know whether people do, but I'm going to use it anyway. I just don't want to risk any loss of gas, so I'm going to use a little bit of liquid PTFE on the thread of the regulator going in, just to seal it, just in case anything happens to it. The actual cylinder itself has got a handle cover protector for the actual valve on the top, and the actual cover itself is really close. It's a real close fit with this regulator, but you'll see what I mean when it's done. But I'll quickly show you what I've done with the cylinder. To all intents and purposes, this is basically all I need to secure this keg. I've got 2 pieces of timber I've trimmed to the width of the to those supporting timbers of the shed. What I'll do is I'll screw those into those supporting timbers. I've got some chain with some brackets. Well, secure the brackets, offer up the cylinder, and then secure the cylinder via the chain and brackets. So meet me back with that, and I'll show you what I've done when I've done it. Well, that's the cylinder on the wall, fixed securely now. So there's probably enough room there for another 1, maybe even 2 more cylinders if I wanted to. Don't know why I would, but here you are. Certainly might get a CO2 cylinder just so I've got some choice. But we'll see how we get on with this cylinder first. Right, next we'll see if we can get ourselves a regulator in there. Bit of a gnarly old cylinder really, isn't it? But never mind. Yeah, so crack on with it. Well, that's it. It's all sorted out. Regulator's on. Check the valves. Valves work nicely. There is gas in it, so I know that. Turned it round so that it's just protecting the dials and the gauges and the regulator itself, and also just that little joint gas fitting. I don't want that knocking off or cracking. Yeah, that's it really. We'll have a look at the outside. Do a bit of marking up on the front of the door of the fridge and see if we can get some holes drilled. Some trouble focusing. Well, that's where I want to drill the holes. I measured it across, and I think it comes in at something like 30 centimeters. So if I get a 40 centimeter drip tray underneath that should work quite well. I'll have another quick look, make sure I don't need to just move him in slightly. but I think that gives you quite a bit of space. Don't want it overcrowding, so that should be all right. I'll have a quick look on the inside, make sure there's nothing in there lurking, get that moved out, and I'll show you what I've done to the shelf in there. Right, next bit of it's done. I've made myself a new shelf. Took out all the shelves that were there. I mean, the glass shelves, they could probably take the weight, but I just don't want to risk it, to be honest. Replaced it with a bit of 22mm ply. 2 kegs are going to go on that shelf, and there'll be 2 going on the bottom there where the salad crisper used to be. So all in all, it should be okay. Should be able to keep the light unless I want to replace the thermostat, but I don't think I will. I'll just have it just as a fridge. I don't think I need to really regulate the heat in here. I'm not that pernickety about it. As long as you can get a nice cold beer out of there. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'll sort of refrain from cleaning it until I've finished doing the cutting and the holes drilling, just because I don't see any point cleaning it at this point. Okay, see you in a bit. Holes done. I've lowered them down a little bit just so that they clear the inside edge where the door seal goes onto the door. I didn't really want it bearing on there too much, but I bought myself a cheapy set of metal hole saw cutters, and it just made really light work of that. So that's the holes cut for the inside edge of the taps. Nice amount of foamy mess. So we'll get on to putting in the hole for the gas feed. So we do that next. Right, well, I'll stop work on the fridge for the minute. I'm going to put a mounting timber in for the secondary regulator. I'd forgotten all about it, but I need to do that in order to know where I've got to put the hole to go in the fridge. So that's what I'm doing now. Put the secondary regulator in, and then I will show you some pictures of that. As explained, there's the mounting timber for the regulator. Gas bottle's down there, so it's got a little way to go, but not too far. And then I've got enough room on there to put another regulator, and maybe some tools or something as well. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked with that actually. That's all right. It's in the right sort of place as well. Obviously the gas will go in sort of there, and then it'll come out there, and then I'll have my auxiliary line down there so I can carbonate kegs without going in the fridge. Okay, right, we're going to feed a bit of line up, and then we'll have a look, see what we've got by way of putting a hole in. Right, that's the 4-branch manifold. I ummed and ahed, played around, tried to stick it somewhere else. I didn't want to know, so what I've done is I've put it there. It's in front of the fan, but the kegs sort of come down below it, so the 2 top kegs are going to have quite short lines. But there's my hole in there. Pardon the light, it's not that good. I'm trying to focus, but I think that's about as best place as I can put it, to be honest with you. It means I've got fairly good access to it as well. I was going to put it down by the side of the door, but the door jamb gets in the way of it. I've got to be a bit careful of that as well, because there's electrics running behind it. So there seemed like the best option. Yeah, I think we're about ready for a bit of a tidy up. I might run a bit of pipe work. I do tidy up, and then I run a bit of pipe work into that manifold from the regulator, the secondary regulator, so I know what I've got. Right, well, we're sort of entering into that time now where there's no more drilling. It's nice and clean in there now. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. The gauge is on the wall. I've got a feed from the cylinder to the secondary gauge, from the secondary gauge going into the manifold. So that side of things, as far as installation is concerned, is pretty much done. It's just the final fixing. the cutting of the pipes to the right lengths. Some are going to be very short, although I'll have to put a little bit of an extra curl on, just to give them a bit of, make it easy for me to use. What else? Holes are all cut now for the taps, as I showed you earlier on, so they're all done. They all fit nicely. What else? Oh yeah, I'll show you in a minute. Also, I've put a thermometer that used to be on the side of the fridge. I just bought a cheapy £2 thermometer off of eBay a while back with a little probe, and I've put it on just below the secondary regulator, and I'll feed it in through another hole into the fridge, and then what I do is I'll cable tie it to the main gas feed going into the manifold, but not actually on the sensor itself, so the sensor will be loose, so won't be picking up what's coming in, it'll be picking up what's already in there. So I think that's pretty much, as far as that goes, it's pretty much ready to rock. Now what I'm going to do next is I've got myself some adhesive vinyl, like Fablon sort of stuff, and so I thought I'd take this opportunity before it's actually finished to stick it on the side of it, get it looking nice. Then I'll stick the taps on, stick a bit of like a black board underneath. I've got some wide insulation tape, and I'll use that. But it means I've got to get rid of this freezer on top of the fridge for the minute, and then when the freezer's off, I can start to dress it up with some of this double-sided, this adhesive vinyl. So I'll get that vinyl on, and then I'll show you that, and then what I'll do is I'll show it you as a finished item, finished off, because to be honest with you, and there's not an awful lot more I can do to it until I've actually got a beer in a keg. So the next part of this will be the beer in the keg. So join me back when I'm ready to put the taps on. Keggorator, Fablon, secondary regulator in position. This trailing wire, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I might actually move that whole thing, put it over there. I think the leads are long enough to reach. I've got a little thermometer there. You can't see the readout on it, unfortunately, because I think the light obscures it. But I've got it sort of wedged between those two pieces of wood, that one there and that one there, and it seems to work quite well. Gas feed and the cylinders are there. I can see the dials quite happily. It's protecting the dials really. So there's the chain and everything else I've got there. There's the feed in with a 3/8 feed. Next to it, if you can see it, is, if I can get my finger in there, right, that there is the hole for the thermostat, if you can get that in, which is the end of that thermometer. What can I say about it? It's all pretty much done really. All the top's been done in this like Fablon stuff, and the bottom has. It looks quite nice. I'm quite pleased with it. It's smartened it right up in the sides. Next thing to do is the taps. So I get all the taps, get all those sorted out, and then maybe we'll consider getting some beer in a keg. Right, welcome back. Looking a bit ragged. I've done all the vinyl wrapping on the Keggorator. Done all my little bits and pieces. I've put the little thermometer in, plugged in the secondary regulator. So I'll give you a little tour of what I've done. Right, as promised, I will show you what I've done so far. I've put the taps on. Piece of piss. There's not much to it really. Just screw them on. There's a collar on them. I think you're going to use a C-spanner, but I used just tapped it down with a drift just to tighten them up. What else? Oh yeah, it's got a 3/16 reducer inside the thing. I'll show you in a minute, but you'll know what I'm talking about. Everything's in, thermometer's in. I've got to clean, hoover the inside out again, and then I think we're sort of ready for beer really. I've got some lines down here, so I might just get those fitted on with the proper quick disconnects on the other ends, so that they're just loose, hanging in there, waiting for beer. I'll do 3 at least. I can't do the 4th because I need to get some more stuff for that. But yeah, so I'll show you what I've done so far. Hold tight. Right, well that's the inside of the Keggorator. There's the 4 manifolds, or that's a manifold with the 4 outlets. That's the gas in with the thermometer just poking in there. It's just how I want it to be left. I don't need it to be connected to anything, I just need to know what it's doing in the actual fridge. I may connect it to a bottle or something, but doubt it. What else we got? Anything of any interest? No, a bit of dirt there that needs tidying up. So I get all this sorted out, I get it all tidied. Really stoked with how it's going at the moment. And I think tomorrow, because it's getting a bit late now, I think tomorrow I will keg that vacant gesture. So hold tight. Evening folks, it's following day. Ran out a bit of time, to be honest with you. Had a few drinks as well. I thought I'd better stop before I completely cock up anything I'm about to continue with, so stopped. Managed to get the Keggorator finished. I've managed to plumb in 2 wet lines, 3 gas lines, which is about what I need for what I'm running at the moment. I've only got 2 beers to go in, 1, maybe 2. So I'll just run you through what I've done. From start to finish really, put the shelf in, secured the bottles, the cylinders to the wall, what else did I do? Cut the holes for the taps, cut the hole for the gas, cut a hole for the little thermometer thing I've got on the side, little digital thing. What else did I do? Fablon. Managed to cover it in an attractive looking wood grain effect Fablon. So yeah, what else can I say? Put the lines in, made sure everything worked. I ran it through with some star sand in the kegs. So I filled the kegs, shook the kegs, gassed them up, fed the star sand through the 2 lines I'm going to be using today. So the lines are sterilised, the kegs are sterilised. All I've got to do now is get the vacant gesture out of the fermentation fridge. It's been cold crashing for a couple of days, and load it into the keg which I've just purged with CO2. So we are, for all intents and purposes, ready to rock. So what I've got to do now is get the vacant gesture out and draw it into the keg, and then add some gelatin finings, and then leave it to do its thing for a couple of days at 30 psi. I think that's what it is, 30 psi for a couple of days, and then take the keg out, purge the keg of CO2, and then load it in for serving pressure, which should be something, I think it's around 18, it's 8 to 10 to 15, I don't know. I'll have a look. I think it's about 8 to 10, I think it is, PSI. Just a quick sort of thing about the lines I put in. I didn't trim any of the wet lines. I don't know whether that's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, but I've run it as it is. The taps have already got flow control on them anyway, so if it's a flow issue, I might be able to adapt the lines, cut them down a little bit, and then adapt the flow through the flow control. I don't know, but yeah. So I've not adjusted any of the wet lines. Obviously the gas lines have been trimmed so that they're not just massive great long lengths of line, but I've not trimmed them so that they're too short either. They've got a bit of coil on them, so it's a bit of slack. You don't want it so tight that you can barely clip them on. So I've done that also, yeah, put a little bump stop on the bottom of there. You can just about, there you go, there, a little bump stop, so that when the door opens it doesn't want to smash into me taps. Yeah, I've got sort of spare kegs there, which hopefully, well, within the next 2 weeks will be filled. And we're rocking, we're cooking on gas. So I'll do a little bit of a video of my sticking the vacant gesture in the keg. I mean, for what it's worth, there are thousands of those videos out there of, you know, putting beer in a keg, but, you know, for those of you perverts who want to see that sort of thing, then, you know, who am I to judge? So what I'll do is I'll put the vacant gesture in the keg. It's only going to take me a couple of minutes. I've got a line, a little length of 3/8 silicone hose. I'll connect to the bottom of the tap, and then I'll just release the tap and let it fill in the keg. Hopefully it's been sat there and it's not got too much shit floating around in it. So yeah, let's say I'll get the vacant gesture in there, and I'll get some gelatin finings in there, I think, and then just let it sit on the gelatin finings whilst it's doing its thing for a couple of days, and, you know, maybe give it another week on top of that before I start drinking it. Should be good. So keep posted. I'll keep you posted, that's more like it, and I'll come back to you in a minute whilst I'm doing my thing with the keg and everything else. So see me in a minute, and let me get set up. Vacant gesture's out. I can see by the way it looks inside the fermenter, it's cold crashed very well. It looks very clear, and I hope it tastes as good as it looks. I've not opened it up to have a look. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to get it straight in there. I might tap a little glass off quickly before I run it through the tube, just so that there is no tap sediment in there. So we'll have a quick look, see how it looks. So it looks, we'll give it one of these, and where my star san is in the bottle. If you can, get yourself one of these as well for your star san. I don't think I've ever mentioned it in any of my videos. It's just a pump action spray bottle. What you can do, you can usually adjust the nozzle. It's a lot less effort than trigger spraying all the time. Just give a little. Do a little pump. Just down inside the spout like that. What we do is normally have a towel underneath there, which we've forgotten about. So sort that out. A little brewing towel I've got full of bleach and all sorts of nonsense. So just let that sit for a sec, let the star san do its thing, and what we'll do is we'll tap off a pint of that, see what it's like, give it a taste. You can have a quick look at it as first dibs. Nice cup of tea as well. It's freezing cold in here at the minute. First bit of dry weather I think we've had for what seems like months. Of course, dry weather when it's approaching winter is usually mean cold, but I like a bit of cold. Wet's a bit nonsense because you can't do an awful lot in the wet, but could be right. Okay, so got my tube. Got my tube in here. So it's just a long length of 3/8 tubing. What I do is I just stick it on the end of there, poke it down inside the, or probably just poke it down inside the keg. Is it all purged? A little bit in there still. And then what we'll do is put the vacant gesture in. And give it a little taste, see what I think of it. So I think that's it. So what we'll do is just turn the tap round, crack one of these off. A lot of floaties in there for the minute. Smells good. Very nice indeed. Very nice. Never had the original, but if it tastes like that, it should be very good. It's crisp. Well attenuated. It's got a slight lingering bitterness on the finish, but it's very refreshing with a nice amount of mosaic in it. So I'm really stoked about that, I really am. So, turn that around that way this time. What we'll do is just take that off of there. And we'll pop that in the bucket of Star San just to keep it clean. Push my fingers a little bit in it. Make sure I'm not contaminating what I'm touching. Just let that run out. Pop that in the bottom of the keg. Pop the lid on here a little bit so it doesn't want to draw too much. Let's take that off. Just sit in there a little while. And we'll just let that in. That, my friends, is how you fill the keg. I think that's how you fill the keg. If it isn't, let me know. That's what we do. That's what I do anyway. So thanks again for watching. I hope you found it a little bit of interest to you. Hope it can inspire you, maybe some of you, to get on and do some kegging. Because believe you and me, I don't know why I didn't do it earlier. It's not hard to do. In fact, it's very easy if you get the kits. If you're trying to build it up a bit at a time, it's slightly harder, but I don't think it's going to be too much harder. So, thanks again for watching, and see you later. Right, if we can get it to focus, I'm sure we will. I've got that riding in there at 330 psi. Through the regulator, and we've got our first two kegs. Vacant Gesture and what was going to be the Black Beer of Christmas, which is neither black, and I'm not entirely certain it's really a beer. Let's wait and see. But that's it. I mean, that's what I've done with the cabling at the minute. The wet lines are just cable tied them up. Just keep them out of the way, stop them getting too busy in there. And the others I've just done that. I may in fact shorten the gas lines, but I don't know. I don't think so. They actually coil around quite well. So wait and see. I might put a little cutout in the bottom of here so that these lines, bottom of here, so that the lines sit a little bit easier in there. That might be a modification to do maybe at some point. But generally speaking, it's really neat, I think. A nice little job. Don't know what you all think. I'm quite pleased with it. So all that remains is to put the beer names on there with a bit of chalk pen. And that is it.